The Seven Men of Moidart were a group of 7 followers of Charles Edward Stuart who accompanied him in his 1745 attempt to reclaim the thrones of Great Britain and Ireland for the House of Stuart. The group included English, Scots, and Irish subjects of varying backgrounds linked mostly by their involvement in pro-Stuart intrigues. Although some had military experience, most of the men were relatively elderly by the standards of the time. Some were already infirm and little suited to the rigours of campaigning. The 7 men accompanied Charles on the French privateer du Teillay, initially landing on Eriskay before reaching the mainland at Kinlochmoidart. In the early 19th century, a row of beech trees was planted at Kinlochmoidart in commemoration of the events, which are still standing today. The 7 Men of Moidart were an intriguing group of men, each with their own unique background and role in the Jacobite rebellion. Here, we will take a closer look at each of the 7 men and their contributions to the rebellion. 1. William Murray, Marquis of Tullybane, the eldest surviving son of the 1st Duke of Atholl and brother of Jacobite Lieutenant General Lord George Murray. Tullybane was heavily involved in the risings of 1715 and 1719. During the 1745 rising, as the senior representative of the House of Atholl, he was chosen to unfurl Charles's standard at Glenfinnan on the 16th of August, although his military activity was limited by gout. He was captured following the defeat at Culloden, and imprisoned in the Tower of London, where he died shortly afterwards. 2. Sir John William O'Sullivan, an Irish professional soldier who, like many Irish Jacobites, had served in the French army. O'Sullivan was highly regarded and trusted by Charles. He was appointed the Jacobite army's adjutant general and quartermaster general, and was an influential figure in the Jacobite Council of War. After the rebellion's failure, Scottish Jacobites were quick to blame O'Sullivan for tactical ineptitude, but more recent scholarship has challenged this view, concluding that this reputation was probably undeserved and that O'Sullivan was effective in the roles given to him. 3. Sir Thomas Sheridan, an Anglo-Irish Jacobite courtier who had previously been involved in the 1715 rising. Sheridan was Charles Stuart's governor and had a close and trusting relationship with him. He was a member of the Jacobite Council during the rebellion. Following the Jacobite defeat at Culloden, Sheridan escaped Scotland on the French privateer Mars, but he had been in poor health for some time and died later that year in Rome. 4. Sir John McDonald, a French subject of Irish origin. MacDonald was a cavalryman, and veteran of the French Régiment de Fitzjames Cavalerie. He served as the Jacobite Inspector General of Cavalry during the rebellion, commanded the cavalry at Culloden, surrendered at Inverness, and was subsequently repatriated. MacDonald clashed on several occasions with Lord George Murray, who depicted him as old and much subject to his bottle, but recent reassessment concludes that MacDonald was a competent officer. 5. Colonel Francis Strickland, an English Roman Catholic from an old Westmoreland family, the Stricklands of Sizer Castle, who were long-standing Stuart loyalists. Strickland had been involved in the 1715 rising and had some continental military experience. Strickland later came to the Jacobite court at Rome, but on finding he had accompanied the expedition to Scotland, James attempted to have him dismissed. Strickland was taken ill on the march through Scotland and was left at Carlisle. Following its retaking by the government, he appears to have claimed to be a French subject, but died there on the 1st of January 1746. James later wrote a letter to Charles describing the deaths of Strickland and Sheridan as a manifest call from heaven for you to rescue yourself from such hands. 6. The Reverend George Kelly, an Irish nonjuring Protestant clergyman. Kelly was involved in the pro-Stuart Atterbury plot in 1722, was arrested, forfeited his estates, and was imprisoned in the Tower of London at the King's pleasure, before later escaping. He was sent by Charles for his management of the rebels' propaganda efforts, drafting the manifesto issued by Charles early in the rebellion. Kelly was described as one of the few truly evil men among the Jacobites by Charles's biographer Macklin, and was said to be distrusted by James. He was sent back to France to report on the Jacobite victory at the Battle of Prestonpans and did not return to Scotland. He was said to have died at Avignon in October 1762. 7. Aeneas MacDonald, a Scots-French banker, who had spent most of his adult life in Paris. Aeneas was the son of a Clanranald tacksman, Ronald McDonald of Kinlochmoidart. He was responsible for arranging much of Charles's initial funding, though later presented himself as a reluctant participant in the expedition who only accompanied them in order to exert influence on his brother. Captured by the government after Culloden, he was initially sentenced to death but was instead exiled. He wrote a memoir of the rebellion which was among those reproduced by Robert Forbes. MacDonald returned to France and died in 1770. Moidart were a diverse group of men, each with their own unique background and role in the Jacobite rebellion. Although their campaign ultimately failed, the 7 Men of Moidart will be forever remembered as a symbol of the loyalty and bravery of the Jacobites, and their contribution to the history of Scotland and Great Britain. Today, the row of beech trees at Kinlochmoidart serves as a powerful reminder of the men who risked everything to fight for what they believed in.